Billy Blue, my knight in shining brindle. Welcome to another episode of A Poet Reads to Write. As you can see, today I'm starting a little bit differently. My precious Billy Blue, oh my precious Billy Blue. He's just had some surgery on a badly infected toe on his left hind leg. So as you can see, we are in recovery mode. Thank you, and we'll see what happens soon. Oh, my precious Billy Blue. Yes, we are in recovery mode. I have had a very anxious and very upsetting last month. I've been trying to hold it together, but I've really been on a bit of a roller coaster of emotions over the last month. About a month ago, my precious Billy Blue went lame in his left hind leg, and I was so worried. I have been told by people from within the racing industry that when a greyhound goes lame in one of their legs, you almost just assume that it's bone cancer until told otherwise. Apparently they are, as a breed, very susceptible to bone cancer in their limbs. So I was absolutely terrified. I was so worried about him. And of course, I do catastrophize. That is one of my, manifestations, one of the symptoms of the anxiety that I live with. So a month ago, I was actually convinced that my poor Billy Blue had bone cancer. And of course, being a hind leg, amputation would not be one of the medical options on the table. I was just so sure when I took him to the vet that it was going to be curtains. They were going to tell me it was an aggressive bone cancer, and really the only thing to do was euthanasia to make sure that he didn't have any upset and distress pain at the end. I was absolutely terrified of taking him to the vet. I really was. And in the midst of all this, I had a blood donation. And you know what I'm like. I'm such a tunnel vision person at times. In some ways, I'm so intelligent. I'm so intuitively and creatively intelligent. But in other ways, I am bizarrely incompetent and inadequate. And because it was on the roster, it was in my schedule that I had to go and make my plasma donation at the blood bank, I just went. And when I went, I should have known it was not going to work. I was so anxious and upset and in such turmoil. By the time I got to the blood bank, I was in a bit of a state. And I went in for my medical interview before the donation to check that everything was all right. And my hemoglobin levels, my blood pressure, all of that was good. But when they were looking at my heart rate, it was racing so much. And not only was it a racing heart rate, but it was very irregular, between slow beats and then fast beats. And it was just all over the shop. And it raised so much concern out at the blood bank that not only was I not allowed to donate on that particular occasion, but now I am not allowed to donate again until I've been medically cleared by a doctor. So I've got to have all these tests on my rotten heart to make sure that everything is okay before I can donate again. And as I tried to say to the blood bank, it was just worry, anxiety about my Billy Blue. That's all it was. And now that I don't have that concern, my heart rate, I'm absolutely certain, is completely normal again. I've been donating now for about 5-7 years, and I've already donated more than 130 times. So I know everything's okay. But anyway, I can't donate again until I've been medically cleared. That's the way it is. But just after that, I finally worked up the courage to take my Billy Blue to the vet. We got to a vet, and the vet that I go to, she's so kind and considerate. She's just absolutely wonderful. She already knows, of course, that I'm a Fruit Loop and that, I don't handle bad news terribly well. I do have a tendency to catastrophize. And I really can't imagine a life without my Billy Blue. He really is my therapy hound. I need him as much as he needs me. So, my beautiful vet, she was very kind, very considerate with me. She just looked at him, she just slowed me down, breathe. Slow down, Phillip. Let's just have a look and see what's happening. And she, really looked at his leg and his toes, his feet, worked out what was going on. And she was pretty confident almost immediately that it was not bone cancer. Because apparently with her level of experience, she would have been able to feel it, in the leg. And there was nothing there at all. As she looked at the leg, the joints and everything looked fine. So she was pretty sure, and she could see that one of his toes, it's the center toe of his left foot, hind foot, was very, very swollen. I don't know why I couldn't have seen that. Because as soon as she pointed it out to me, yes, his middle toe had really swollen up, almost another third the size again. It was very swollen. It was clearly infected. Well, we had some x-rays just to make sure there wasn't a stress fracture in that, in the bone, in that toe. And we also looked at the x-rays just to make sure there wasn't any gravel or glass in it, some sort of cause for this infection. And nothing showed up in the x-ray. So we knew there was no stress fracture. There wasn't any glass or gravel or anything like that in the toe. So probably what's happened is on one of the walks that I've taken him on, because he can't poop unless he walks, my precious boy. So on one of our walks, he's obviously got a small, a little prick, a little burr, a little prickle or something that's just worked its way into that toe, and it's caused this terrible infection. So he's had a little bit of surgery to try and get whatever the cause of the infection is out, and he's now on a course of antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, and I think we've turned the corner. I take him back to the vet again on Monday, and I'm pretty confident that the news will be bright. We are in recovery mode. Everything is going well. Oh, my precious Billy Blue. I could not live without him. I don't know, who's rescued who. People always congratulate me for rescuing, and giving an ex-racer a fresh start. I tell you what, that dog has completely transformed me. I am, within 2 weeks of him coming into my life, I was a different person. As I've said in the past, when he first came to me, I was in a really bad state. I was in a really bad way, a very vulnerable situation. I really was. Things were not good. But within 2 weeks of that dog coming into my life, I was a different person. All the compulsions I had to self-harm, a lot of the facial tics, a lot of those things, my suicide ideation, a lot of that stuff just eased within 2 weeks. It was an astounding transformation. It really was. I had spent 12 months before I got him, I had been in and out of the psychiatric hospital again because things had got really bad, reached a bit of a crisis point. This was before my marriage ended and while I was still living in my little townhouse in the middle of Melbourne, in that beautiful suburb called Sunshine. And I was living down there and we'd adopted one greyhound. I'd come out of the psych hospital and as a welcome home present, really. My partner knew I'd always wanted a dog and she always thought that might be one of the keys for getting me on a more even path. So she had adopted me a greyhound. Unfortunately, the first greyhound we adopted, who we called Charlie Brown, he had been very cruelly mistreated by his owner. He had done a little bit of racing, but not much. He'd never been successful. And unfortunately, instead of putting him straight up for adoption and getting him out of the industry, they very unfairly and very cruelly just kept him. And he would just spent 5 years living in this concrete pen, in a cage, being mistreated. And the poor dog, he came to us, he was in a terrible mess. Unfortunately, my partner realized, I think straight away, it was the wrong dog to have got for me, because Charlie had so many mental health issues on his own. He was not going to be able to help me. When I looked at poor Charlie Brown, it was like looking in the mirror. It really was. The poor dog, he had all these facial tics, all these gaps and yawns. He was self-harming. He would bite himself until he bled, the poor boy. Once he came into our townhouse, he was too scared to go outside. So getting him to go to the toilet was just really difficult, because he was just so scared of going outside for a walk. The poor boy was in a really bad way. And the other thing about Charlie Brown was he needed to be with a woman. The only comfort he could get for some relief from that mental health anxiety and depression that he was in was from a woman. So when our marriage ended, my ex-partner kept Charlie Brown, and I miss him to bits. He was a beautiful dog, so damaged, but he was a beautiful dog. I miss him like crazy. But then a little while later, we got the second dog, and Billy Blue, he just walked into our lives, loved our townhouse, right from the word go, loved me. Right from the word go, I was his and he was mine. He just took to me straight away. So when our marriage ended, as I said, Charlie Brown went with my ex-partner, and Billy Blue, of course, came with me. And not only did Billy Blue save me, but you won't believe it, he had an equally great transformative power on Charlie Brown. He completely changed Charlie Brown as well. And within 2 weeks of Billy coming into our lives, Charlie was able to, he was always nervous and anxious, but he was able to go for walks with me and Billy, through sunshine, so that he could go to the toilet and all that sort of thing. He just became a different dog. Every month that went by after we adopted Billy, Charlie Brown did learn to just relax a little bit and be a little bit more secure and comforted. It was astounding, and it was all Billy Blue. He not only saved me, but he saved Charlie Brown as well. Billy Blue, he's just an amazing dog. He is a very gentle, quiet, affectionate soul, my Billy Blue. He's just, I love him to bits. So this is a little poem sequence that I've written about my 2 greyhounds. It's a poem sequence that I have called Animal Liberation. There are 2 poems in the sequence. The first poem, of course, is for Charlie Brown, our first greyhound, and the second poem is for my Billy Blue, who, of course, when he came to me, his racing name was Sir JJ, and I changed that very quickly to Billy Blue. All right. So this is the poem sequence that I've written for my 2 adorable greyhounds. It's called Animal Liberation. Hopefully, this has been worked out well for Charlie Brown and Billy Blue, so they've been liberated, rescued as well. But I tell you what, I always know that I'm the animal that has been liberated, completely saved and transformed. I am salvaged by a hound. Oh, Billy Blue, I owe him so much. All right, let's get down to it. Animal Liberation. Poem 1, Hounded. For Charlie Brown, my first rescue greyhound. I was the dregs hitting the floor, but still I could cup the palm of my hand over his cranium, fingers scratching that spot behind his ears, courting for him a ceasefire in this alien space of comfort and love and treats. What mass grave of neglect might have been his after a life unsuccessfully racing, when camera, lights, action are whittled down to a cage in a concrete pen. Charlie Brown came to me biting himself, his face a host of tics and yawns, too scared for outside, the trace of misuse. And yet, in saving him, my self-harming is more or less now also unneeded. And in my townhouse turned kennel, we are becoming safe. Poem 2, Sir JJ Raids Rich. You saw me reading this poem to Billy Blue on that video on my tiny home. If you've watched that wonderful documentary video on my tiny home living, I'll put a link to that video down below if you would like to watch it again or for the first time. But this is the poem that I'm reading to my Billy Blue in that video. Poem 2, Sir JJ Raids Rich. For Billy Blue, my second greyhound. Raced for the punters, a homebred, genuine stayer, hooked out wide for speed star spoils, and his trainers manage the racing agenda after deep pockets fracture his accessory carpal bone. To get him back on track, surgeons amputate front right toes. So JJ is out there, a distant superstar, rent asunder from the field. But 100 grand in prize money is stillborn when it comes to post-racing care. So a hobbled champ is up for grabs. As Billy Blue, he is my knight in shining brindle. Velcro hound, snoot to snoot, limping from treat to soft toy squeak. These newfangled lures lugged to a den. Now he snoozer snuggler. Long haul dog love, redeeming both Charlie and me. Oh, Billy Blue, the love of my life. Thank you, and bye for now.